And a short time ago, the Shadow Treasurer, Joe Hockey, joined me from Melbourne. Joe Hockey, you've gone on and on over the past 3 years about debt and deficit and about Australia being in a budget emergency. Given that there's nothing in your costings that constitutes an emergency response, is it time to admit that you've spent 3 years exaggerating for political effect?
Not at all. We cannot present an alternative budget from opposition. But what we've shown is that when you take into account all of our policies, together with all of our responsible savings, we're going to leave the budget in a better state than that which we inherit. And that means a $6 billion improvement to the budget bottom line, but also we're going to pay down $16 billion of Labor's debt. Now, Lee, you're right. It's not a huge change, but we're turning the direction around from Labor, which is increasing debt and deficit, to ourselves who are starting to pay it off.
Do you still claim that we're in a budget emergency?
Well, we are, because in the period between the budget and the government's last reported update on the numbers, the budget bled about $3 billion a week. Now, the government just doesn't know how to pull back on expenditure. And what we've presented to the Australian people today is a responsible plan that focuses on growing the economy, delivering job security, and importantly, it focuses on starting to build the infrastructure for the future.
You say the government doesn't know how to pull back on spending, but you just admitted yourself before that you haven't made a huge change.
Well, we have. We've made a significant change.
Well, have you made a huge change or not?
Yes, we have. We've made a significant change in the way that we are spending money. Now, we can't continue to hand out borrowed money, for example, on the school kids bonus, and we can't continue to have massive growth in foreign aid using borrowed money. But we need to spend money on productivity-enhancing infrastructure like better roads, or put in place initiatives that actually liberate the economy, like cutting the carbon tax, cutting the mining tax, and not proceeding with Labor's FBT changes.
You mentioned earlier that you're addressing debt, but on what we know so far about your economic plans, you won't return to surplus any sooner than the Labor government's current forecast of a $4.3 billion surplus in 2016-17.
Well, our plan is all about growing the economy. There's no doubt the economy is stuck in third gear. We have rising unemployment and we've got a rising deficit and debt. And what we're saying is that we're going to reprioritise government expenditure to focus on building infrastructure, particularly roads, but also to liberate families and small businesses by having tax cuts in place. And I think that'll help to grow the economy.
But when we're looking at the bottom line over the forward estimates, there's really not going to be that much difference in the position that you end up with and the position that they forecast they would end up with.
Well, there is a difference. It is the fact that we are focused. We're focused entirely on how to grow the economy. Getting rid of the carbon tax is a costly exercise, but it is going to increase economic growth. We've identified it and reported it to the Australian people. Getting rid of the mining tax is going to liberate investment in the mining industry, which has been hamstrung by it. And not proceeding with the FBT changes on motor vehicles is going to have a positive impact on the motor vehicle industry.
You've announced a $4.5 billion cut in Australia's foreign aid budget. From which countries will that be cut?
Well, we have to get into the depths of the foreign aid budget, but I want to emphasise we can't continue to grow the foreign aid budget well above inflation rates at the same time as the Australian economy is trending at below historic levels.
So you don't know yet from which countries that money will come?
Well, we will go through that line item by line item if we get elected on Saturday. But what we've said is that we want to prioritise it towards non-government organisations rather than the United Nations and a few other of the larger organisations.
Is PNG quarantined from foreign aid cuts given how much we are now relying on them for asylum seeker processing?
Well, it has been near impossible, I must say, Lee, to identify what the foreign aid arrangements are with PNG following the deal done between Kevin Rudd and the PNG government.
Is PNG quarantined under your...
I'm not going to get into redesigning the foreign aid budget on the run. We want to deal with this, But we want to have our priorities, and we've always said Asia and the Pacific are our priorities.
In the Coalition's Real Solutions booklet, and then again this morning, Tony Abbott has committed to an audit looking at savings and efficiencies, in other words, cuts across all government departments. How can you claim that anything then is quarantined post-election when you're looking at all government departments?
Well, when you look at what we've actually said today, you can see that we're not cutting education, we're actually increasing it. We're not cutting health, we're actually increasing funding.
But you're having an audit after the election.
But we have to target waste and duplication.
And you said across all departments.
Well, because that is the only responsible way to go. Now, what we're doing is we're saying emphatically, we're not going to cut in the health budget, the education budget, and the defence budget and health and medical research. We've said that emphatically, but it doesn't mean that we can't find waste in those programs and redirect it into frontline services.
When we look at the last time a coalition government came to power, on a range of things, John Howard made guarantees before the 96 election and then changed tack afterwards. For example, he said the government would maintain all Commonwealth concessions for older Australians, but then slashed the dental program. He said a coalition government would keep the tax concession for research and development at 150% and then slashed it to 125%. If past behaviour is the best predictor of future behaviour, then shouldn't Australians be sceptical about your assurances?
Well, I'd urge them not to be. We've been entirely honest with the Australian people. We've been very upfront. We've used the Parliamentary Budget Office and 3 eminent Australians to verify the accuracy of our numbers. No one is verifying the accuracy of Labor's numbers.
But we haven't seen your methodology or any of the assumptions behind it?
Well, the government doesn't release any methodology or assumptions behind their own budget numbers, and they've got thousands of public servants. And what we've done is we've had an independent panel that has gone through this process for 8 months, Lee. Not overnight, but for 8 months. And we've done it comprehensively. And now we've laid down our cards on the table. We've got a recipe that delivers a stronger and more productive Australian economy. And we've got to give people confidence and job security. And if we do that, the economy will grow. It will grow.
Joe Hockey, thank you. We'll see you after the election.
Thank you very much, Lee.